I'm Laura Knights, CEO of Knights Consulting, creator of BlackWomanLeading.com, and the host of Black Woman Leading, the podcast. This podcast amplifies the needs and experiences of Black women leaders in the workplace with a holistic focus on three core areas: leadership development, mental wellness, and relationship management. Our ultimate aim is to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity. Hey there, before we jump into the next podcast episode, I want to share two quick announcements with you. We are just weeks away from the 2025 Black Woman Leading Live Conference and Retreat. It's taking place May 27th through the 30th, 2025 in Virginia Beach. Now, this is our third annual event, and if you haven't heard, this event is the premier leadership development conference to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity. Now, this is not just an event, it's an experience designed by Black women for Black women. Listen, the Black Woman Leading team, along with our dynamic guest experts that will be there, are going to help you do the hard work and the head work to clarify your career growth strategy, work on refining your leadership skills, and make a plan to tend to your mental wellness and self-care while you are doing all of that. So activities include workshops, panels, wellness breaks, laser coaching, networking, action planning, all of that. Past attendees have shared that this event has been transformative for them and has helped them make critical shifts to take not only their career, but their life to the next level. You need to be in the room, okay? So we have less than 25 seats left until we sell out. So make a plan to get there, talk to your employer, do whatever you got to do and be there with us, okay? You can get all the details and sign up, save your seat at www.bwlretreat.com. And my second announcement for you. Now our full podcast episodes are on YouTube. So you want to see my beautiful face, you want to see the face of our brilliant guests and catch the vibe as we're really having these dynamic conversations. Subscribe to the Black Woman Leading YouTube channel and you can watch the full episodes of the season there. So head on over there and subscribe. So welcome everyone. Today we are talking about managing uneven power dynamics with Nicole Palmer. Hey Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
So excited to have you here. And Nicole knows a thing or two about this topic. She's even written a book that talks about some of this stuff. So we're going to get into that today. But first, let me give you all just a quick official bio of Nicole. So Nicole S. Palmer is an author and founding partner of the publishing company Delnick Media. She's also the host of a 5-star rated podcast called Black Womaning in Corporate America. And she is the author of Playing the Game While Black Womaning in Corporate America. When she isn't writing, she's speaking, and she's usually talking about equity. So as you all know, everybody we invite here, as I always say, they have the receipts. So excited to talk about this. So why this topic this season? So, this season is about driving the narrative of your career. And at Black Woman Leading, in our programs and events, we're now serving people along the career cycle. So from early career, mid and senior, even up to our executive clients and our individual coaching programs and things of the sort. And what we see, of course, we exist because Black women are having a unique experience in the workplace that requires a unique response. But this managing power dynamics, right? I think across the career life cycle is really powerful to talk about this because when you're early career, you may not have a lot of power or authority. So you managing up, you are using your influence, you're doing all these things. And then as you move up and you do get some authority and some power, there's still nuance for you as a Black woman. So I wanted to dive into this because I think it's really critical to this topic and how Nicole and I got hooked up. Nicole, I think your PR folks reached out and said, look, our good sis has written this book. And the stuff y'all talking about is connected. We did an intro call. It was kindred, really connected and wanted to invite her to the podcast. So that's how we got here. We're going to get more into this, but let's go ahead and jump into the questions and we'll talk more about this topic and hear Nicole's insight from her book as well. Okay, so Nicole, before we jump into talking about this Black woman in corporate America, I want to ask you the question we always ask our guests. So, what does the phrase Black woman leading mean to you? And can you just share a little bit about your journey as a Black woman leading that kind of led you to this current work you're doing?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I sat with that idea, and the thing that really came to me is Black women leading is purpose driven. It's stepping fully into your purpose and going all in, and that's really what my journey has been now compared to where it was when I first started. And for me, it really, everything that has happened up until now really led me to today.
Mm,
So all of the missteps, the toxic environments, all of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as Black women led me to today. And what I realized is that what things look like for me as a leader and as a Black woman is fully embracing and owning my purpose and
mm,
living it.
yeah. You know, that purpose piece I think is so powerful. And this is a topic some people are really aligned and clear on that.
Mhm.
uh, how did you find, what would you say your purpose is? I think it's important for people to have hear
Yeah.
some examples. And how did you find that for yourself?
You know what's funny? I've been, I think, running from my purpose for a while now.
Mm,
And so I grew up in the church, so I immediately think of the story of Jonah. Are you just running away from stuff? But
yeah,
I've always known that my purpose was to write and to be, share, impact others through my writing.
yeah,
And that is something that has always been part of my life from a young age up until now. It wasn't until recently, especially this last job that I left that was very toxic and just a hostile working environment, that I decided it was time to really just stop running
yeah.
and lean into my purpose and my calling, which has always been writing, because it's amazing how you can touch people and how you can inspire others and encourage and soothe and be a balm just by putting pen to paper and
Mm.
sharing your stories with the world. And so that's really my purpose. And it's something I've always known, but it's not something I've always wanted to actually pursue.
Well,
Because,
oh, okay. Finish what you're saying, because I got a question about this, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish what
oh
you were just about to
no,
say there.
yeah, honestly, that was it. It's something that I've always known has been my purpose. It's just not something I've always owned and leaned into.
Yeah, and I mean, I know this is not on our topic, but since we're into it, I just want to ask you, because that resistance, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
I think about the body of my work, right? From being a coach, from being a therapist, from being a leader within an
Mm-hmm.
organization, all of this, that resistance to the purpose. What's your conclusion about what that is? Why do we do
Mm.
that? Why do we
Oh
do
yeah,
that?
well, that one's really easy. That's an easy question.
Okay.
So it's fear. It's
Mm,
fear. It is 100% fear driven. And it's really that fear that, okay, you know that you know that you know this is what you were born to do. Well, what if nobody else agrees with you?
ooh.
What if you put it out there and everybody's like, okay,
The
or not
rejection of
interested?
it, right? The rejection of it. Yeah.
Exactly. But what I do believe is that whatever is ordained is going to succeed. And
Mm,
like I'm a full believer in that.
yep.
And so something that is ordained cannot fail. The problem
Yes.
is that we don't always believe that we're the ones called to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I think that fear, right? Sometimes the fear is fear of failure, right?
Yes.
What if I launch out and it's a failure, and I waste the resource, and I waste the hope, and
Right.
I waste the, faith and trust people put in me. But sometimes it's fear of success too.
Oh,
What if
yes.
I win? And what does that mean? And what
Uh
will
huh.
people think? And
Exactly.
it's fear of rejection and all of these kind of things. I think we can attach several things to that
Oh, absolutely.
fear. I love that you brought this up. When I think about purpose, and I've probably said this on the podcast at one point over these years, but I think about my own purpose, which has always been this red thread throughout all my work, but and you probably can resonate with this as well, but the iteration of it, right, look
Yep.
different in different times. So I think about early part of my career, I was a youth development professional. I ran programs for young people. I was an adolescent therapist. I ran girls groups. Now the youth ain't my ministry right now. Okay, baby, the nerves and the patience, okay, is not there. But for a good 12 years of my early career, that's what I did. The same thing I do for full grown women now and Black women leader
Wow.
are things I did with our young people, helping them understand themselves, grow self-awareness, identify their passions and pursue it. All of that I did for young people looked very different. I think about when I was a
Yep.
clinician, a therapist,
Mm.
right? I'm not doing that clinical work, but doing a lot around mental health, mental wellness. So I say this, and I'm so glad, Nicole, you opened this up with your comment. If somebody's listening
Mm.
and you're trying to figure out what is my purpose, because maybe I'm in that toxic workplace like Nicole was
Okay.
experienced, or maybe I'm at this transition point, I'm just ready to do what's for me. I invite you, if you don't know what if you know what the purpose is, baby, go after it, okay?
Yes.
If you don't know, I encourage you to do a reflection back over your life and look at what were the things that was consistent with you as a teenager,
Yes.
as a young woman, as who you are now. And I bet you, Nicole, I haven't said it, but I bet you she can look to when she was writing as
Oh
a
yeah.
young woman, as a teenager, and what this did and how people
Yeah.
connected to her words, right? It's always been
Absolutely.
there. It's always been there.
Absolutely. I
Oh,
mean, it's just a little aside to your point. I apparently decided to teach myself to read at the age of 4 because I had things to do. And and then writing came shortly after. And when I tell you, my mom still has spiral notebooks from the poems and the
wow.
different diary entries that I've written over the years. And writing has always been a balm for me.
Yes.
And it wasn't until recently that I realized it's not just for me. The gift is not for me. The gift is for other people.
Yes.
And so it's time to lean into that. And it's so easy to spot. You spot it a mile away. So I really believe that it's not a matter of if you have a gift, it's a matter of whether you're ready to acknowledge it and walk in it.
Oh, wait a minute, because we can pass the collection plate on that. Wait, it's not a matter of if you have a gift, but what did you say? If you're ready to walk into it?
Yeah, if you're willing to admit it and walk in it.
Ooh, girl. Okay, let me just add one more thing to the definition of purpose, because Nicole just gave it to us. One, it's been with you consistent throughout. So Nicole was a little baby in there writing and carrying on, right? Me, I think about it. My first job, my daddy said I couldn't get a job. My job was school, but I wanted to make some money. And so one of the neighborhood folks had 2 elementary school girls that asked me to tutor them, and she would pay me. And I'm like, that felt enough, because I was a volunteer tutor after school already. That felt enough like something I was already doing, and I knew my daddy would say yes to it and I could make that little money. But this is the killing part. I stayed with them girls for about 3 to 4 years.
See?
All the way through. But this is the thing. I was tutoring them, but in that same period, those girls' parents went through a divorce. They family saw a lot of just turmoil. And who was the consistent helping them to heal and grow throughout that? The little teenage tutor was the consistent big sister while their little lives was in disarray. It wasn't about the tutoring.
Wow.
It's about the same thing I'm doing now, right? So here's the definition, and Nicole helped us with this. First part, this thing has been with you. It's natural. It comes to you. You ain't got to study to know how to do this thing. So it could be writing, it could be teaching, counseling, it could be something creative. My husband is a musician. He was 13 making music and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay, that's that. So it's consistent. Second thing, Nicole gave it to us. It is some service. People are being served through it, whether that's your intention or not. They're being moved by it. They're being loved by it. They're being healed by it. They're being inspired by it, whether you set out to do it or not. That's what's at the other end of your purpose and your gift. Baby, we can wrap this podcast up right now. We haven't even got to the topic though. Let's look, focus, Nicole, focus, girl. We all off track, but it's good stuff. Okay. Let's get into our topic for today, since we done gave y'all a sermon real quick. But we're talking about managing the uneven kind of power dynamics, right? And navigating this throughout your career. So let's get into this book, Nicole. You wrote this book, Playing the Game While Black Womaning in Corporate America. I love Black Womaning as a verb, first of all. Tell us about the inspiration for the book, and then what does Black Womaning in Corporate America mean from your vantage point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, spoiler alert, I wrote the book while I was on medical leave from the toxic job. And so during that time period where I actually almost, fun fact, I thought the day that I actually went on medical leave, I thought I was having a heart attack. And I actually had to go to the ER because the symptoms were all over the place. I'm not someone who has health issues like that. So I was terrified. Wow. So went to the ER, did all the tests, went through all that stuff. And come to find out, it was stress. And I said, what? And so there was this journey, there was this time frame where I had to go on forced medical leave because my body said enough. Wow. And I spent that time reflecting, figuring out, what does this mean? And really sitting with that. And I went for a walk one day I think I was a month out from having to decide, are you going back? What are you doing? Yeah. And while I was walking, I came up with the concept for this book because I realized like everything I do at work is a game. Wow. It's all a game. And at the end of the day, and this is something that I accidentally came up with this phrase when it comes to working in corporate America as a Black woman, it's like, either you're playing the game or the game's playing you. There's only one of those two options at the end of the day. And some of us are better at it than others. And so when I really sat with that and really understood, I need other people to know this, because if I can help one Black woman prevent her from going through what I went through, I will have accomplished what I set out to do. Yeah. Because I knew that what I dealt with was not unique to me. And so when I started really mapping that out, and the other funny story is, as I'm walking, I came up with follow-up books for the initial book. Wow. So, and so it's like a whole series, and I saw it in my head and I saw what it would look like, but I knew the first book would be Understand There Is a Game. Understand it and understand there are rules to it, and rules that are different for us, that we don't know about. And thinking through that, when I'm thinking about the idea of Black women in corporate America and why it resonated for me, Black womaning is not a new term. It's been used before. We see it on social media, we see it on Twitter or Instagram. But what really resonated for me and how I came up with the concept and created the term Black women in corporate America is that when I look at us as Black women in the corporate spaces, I think about this plant or flower that is just, unvarnished, pure and beautiful and just, a vision. And you put it into this hostile work environment that is corporate America. And you are expected to thrive and survive under the most hostile conditions because of the stereotypes, because of the microaggressions, the macroaggressions. And yet we still, we do it anyway. And you look, and this is not unique to any specific industry. We see it everywhere play out over and over again. Yeah. We see it at the highest echelons. We just saw it play out last year at the highest office in the land. Yes. What you saw happen is the crux of my book. Yeah. That is, it doesn't matter how qualified you are. It doesn't matter how many degrees, how many accolades. What I always say when it comes to us, we are Black first, woman second. Yeah. And that might as well be 3 strikes for us. Yeah. You know what's powerful when you bring up like the presidential election and stuff. I'm just thinking of, this is maybe early February. We're not even 3 weeks into the new administration, right? And I remember seeing, it was egregious because it came so quickly, right? All the executive orders, and people were bombarded. Right. But I remember seeing a lot of white women in particular
on social media posts in the comments like, "Where are you, Kamala? We need you." And I'm like, what y'all want the woman to do? And a lot of the backlash I remember, particular, I saw she did a post of her husband like celebrating an anniversary, or
Mm-hmm.
something like 20 something, 30 something year anniversary, and people was like, "It's nice to know you frolicking while the company's going down, while the country's going down." And I'm like, what y'all expect this woman to do? Like, she can't live her life and celebrate with her
No,
man. Y'all, and
no,
she
no,
tried. Like, so now it's her
absolutely not.
responsibility to fix it. And I think we see that when we talk about managing these uneven politics, that, you may be giving a contribution, and if
Right.
something doesn't go right, and it's still this expectation, right, that you're going to still give your all, you still going to fix it, you still going to
Yes.
show up in a certain way. And
Yeah.
it's like, come on now. Come on.
Can
So the
you?
black
Yeah.
woman, and just so I'm clear, the audience is
Yeah.
clear. We're talking about this in the context of um this, how are you navigating and still showing
Yes.
up as your brilliant self, which has a cost, and we're gonna talk about
Mm-hmm.
that, in the midst of environments that are not always friendly to you, and
Absolutely.
not always safe to you. Yes. Okay. Black
Yes.
womaning. We got it. So the book was inspiration. Wow. While you're on leave
Mm-hmm.
from a toxic environment. I mean, that you
Yes.
were you were in full blown burnout then, that was
Oh
mimicking
yeah.
medical issues.
100%. 100%
Wow.
full burnout. And it took the physical breakdown, because one of the things about me, I'm a go person. I am
Yeah.
always at 1,000. And I think that is par for, this is not unique to me. Again, this is all overachieving Black women.
Yeah.
When we are an overachiever, we have a tendency to be at 1,000.
Yeah.
And so it took, my body had to physically stop me
Wow.
for me to stop, because I would have still been going. I would have still tried to make, I would have still tried to make it work. And
Yeah.
the hours I was working were insane, but again, not unique to me. This is when I look at the Black woman experience, the way that I look at it is, we all have the same song. And if I
Mm.
started singing it, you could join in.
Yeah.
And because why? Because we all know the lyrics, because we all experience it on almost an identical level,
Yeah.
because that is what they see. It is Black
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
And we all are treated accordingly, unfortunately, and it doesn't matter what our qualifications are.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's really interesting when you talk about that same song? I think about, like, for instance, our mid-career program, for mid and senior level leaders of Black women leading. Our program is industry agnostic because it really does
Mm.
not matter. We have had uh federal government workers, corporate 500, nonprofit principals. We've had all these people in one cohort together,
Yep.
and it's fluid, the issues and the challenges. And I'll never forget our first international participant,
Mm.
love her, from Kenya, when we were on the call and she was considering if she was going to join the program. And she
Mm.
asked, is it mostly American Black women? I said, that's who it's primarily been to date. You will be our first international. And she was excited to connect with her sisters across the water, but wondering if her
Mhm.
experience would be the odd man out. Or she was like, I'm really introverted and I know Americans are real out there. I'm like, girl, bye. It depends on who you talking to. And she worked
Mhm.
for an international NGO. When I tell you, she weaved on in the same challenges she having, they having, and
Yep.
she like, we are the same person. I'm
Mhm.
all the way in a whole different continent, a different country, and it was the same thing. It was
Yep.
absolutely the same thing. So you on to something with that. Okay, so you wrote this book, and I think you talk about a lot in the book, but one of the things we want to raise up is this concept of managing uneven power dynamics, is what we're
Yep.
zooming in on today. So let's just level set and make sure everybody understands. Can you provide a few examples of maybe when you had to manage the uneven power dynamics in the workplace, just so that language people know what we're talking about before we start diving into deeper on that topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you'll typically see this is, at least the way I've experienced it, is typically with manager to employee relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And typically what happens there is that you're having to be all of the things. And that means, and this will especially happen when it's an incoming supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found a lot, and this is something else that will ring true for a lot of Black women and resonate, is they bring you in to fill in as the interim, right? Because they've lost the supervisor or they've gone through a shakeup, whatever the case is. They know you're the most qualified, so they'll bring you in for some stability. But you're a placeholder, and then they'll bring somebody else above you that then you have to train and you have to support and anchor. And
Mm-hmm.
that dynamic is very difficult to navigate oftentimes
Yeah.
because you're playing the role essentially of manager, trainer, but also employee.
Yeah.
And that makes it it can be very tricky to navigate. And that's a lot of times where, and I might be getting a little ahead of myself, where you see that shift from pet to threat, because you're saving the day, you're helping this individual who's just coming in, trying to get the lay of the land, and they're
Mm-hmm.
grateful and excited until they realize you are more qualified than they are.
Yeah, yeah. And in addition to the interpersonal, just the tactical tensions of this, right? Knowing
Absolutely.
you're qualified for it, but you're not tapped for the job. There's also the
Right.
feelings about it, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
and some people manage that by turning that inward, like maybe
Hmm.
I'm not qualified. And other people, they don't have no problem with the identity part. And there's resentment under there
Hmm.
too, why they're still having that, like you said, grin and bear and
Yep.
kind of make this happen. So um th- there, so this is a concept that's common in a lot of leadership development language, called managing up, right? And there's a dark side to this, and there's a positive influence side to this. So I
Hmm.
want to talk about this spectrum and how we begin to see the warning signs. So if
Yeah.
you haven't heard the term managing up, you're listening, you haven't heard that term. It's this concept of understanding that you have some influence as well on
Hmm.
your manager and leaders. Now, on a positive side, this could look like really understanding, what's required of them, and
Yeah.
then positioning your work as a value add to that, right? It could be about understanding the dynamics of how they communicate and how they like to receive information. And so you are kind of pitching your ideas in that way. For example, I think about an not early career, maybe this was early part of my mid career. But I had a leader who was very opposite in my communication style. I mean, if we think
Mm.
about behavioral assessments, I'm very vision focused. I'm going to focus on people first and then go to the task. She was the opposite. She was
Mm.
very direct, bottom line focused. She's going to focus on the task instead of people first. And I remember I basically was an entrepreneur. They wanted me to remake a new thing, and that's my jam. I love that. Very entrepreneurial, love that. And it was I was at a university. It was outward facing, and so it
Mm.
was creating programs that would support disenfranchised communities around the university. So there was some financial literacy, there was some workforce development, all my jam, rooted in my
Right.
social work environment. So I'm made for this. I'm gonna kill this. But I remember when I had to kind of pitch the big picture, I would have to staff the initiatives and all of this. I would go to the vision, how the people's
Hmm.
lives are going to be transformed first, and all of that. That's what I would start with. And
Right.
I remember one or two times she hurt my feelings after
Mm.
really spending this time getting my deck together to present to her this transformation. And I was saying, their lives are gonna be changed, and da 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 da. And she interrupted me and was
Mm.
like, what's the budget? And how much is it gonna cost? And I'm
Mm.
like, hold, I done did that work. I'm getting to that. Let me get to the vision first. But the managing up piece is that I realized to get her yes for the things I wanted to do, I had to speak in her language.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I gave her the money first. I gave
Hmm.
her, here is the timeline, here are the benchmarks. Once she was satisfied and I went to the vision, we could go there. And we ended up working together for about 10 years. She ended up being a sponsor. She didn't bother me. She let me do whatever I wanted. But it was after I learned how to give her what she needed. So that's on the positive side where you realize you have some influence to get them to say
Yep.
yes, but you may have to twist this thing a certain way,
Yep.
truthfully, ethically, of course, but maybe the
Yes.
order in which you share the message, right? That's
Yep.
on the good side. But on the dark side
Mm,
is some of the stuff you talking about of really overextending yourself,
yeah,
morphing into something that's out of line with your values and all of this.
absolutely.
So you talked about, Nicole, when we had our initial conversation, you shared an example of this kind of managing up,
Yep.
uneven power dynamics that was on this dark side. And can you share a little bit about that? Because I think if people have this idea of there's a spectrum here, and your job is to determine, are we on the side that's appropriate, or we getting
Yep.
to the side when I might have to set some boundaries and do something different? That's the awareness we want people to have.
Absolutely. And what I experienced in my last, I always call it my last toxic job. And when I experienced there is that the dynamics went from a place where it was support, but then it went to over reliance. And it
Mm,
wasn't just, hey, can you walk me through the process? Can you walk me through this? Can you help me map this out? It was, let me text you at inappropriate times of the night because I'm stressed out and I need to vent and I need you to be my emotional support. On the
mm,
weekend, during the week, it didn't matter. And that is a tough place to be in because, sure, you are managing up, but they're still your supervisor and they still
yes.
have the power to essentially terminate you.
Yeah.
And that is, and oftentimes what happens is we don't even realize it escalates to that
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
It just goes into that point because we initially, we have these conversations since we're going great. We exchange cell phone numbers, you're having fun conversations. It's light and it's casual. And then because they feel that you are an individual that they can rely on
Mm.
outside of work, then you become that extension of what they need beyond work. And that's when it
Yeesh.
gets troublesome.
Yeah, baby, because they got some needs that need to be met by their friend, their mama, their romantic
Yeah.
partner, but not
Uh-huh.
you. But not
Hello.
you. And it's important, right? Because, like you said, it's one thing of support within the context of the
Mhm.
managing up appropriately. But when I become your emotional support and you want to
Yeah.
vent, I can't do if you listening and you think this is foolish what they saying. You can't do that. Get yourself together.
No, no, you
Smack on the
cannot.
face. Get yourself together. Shake it on the shoulders.
Mm-mm.
You can't
You
do
cannot.
that. And so
Mm-mm.
then, so what would you say are some of those? Because it is insidious. It's a slippery slope, and
Very
before you
much.
know, that thing is a full blown cancer. What would you say are some of those warning signs of when we are venturing on the dark side of this managing up
Yeah.
spectrum?
One thing that I always recommend to people, the best way to prevent is realize that your boss is not your friend. If you
Mm,
could just realize that, I think that would save so much heartache for a
yes.
lot of us. And so the moment that hey, let's exchange numbers, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do social media.
Mm-mm.
You have to keep a physical and a virtual distance, if you will.
Yeah.
So that is where it becomes a very slippery slope because the lines get blurred quick.
Yeah.
You think, oh, everything is, great and hunky dory. And what's dangerous, because this is what happened with me, because you think you have a relationship beyond professional, you get comfortable and you
Yes.
think you can say things you shouldn't say because they're still your supervisor.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so and so that's what's very dangerous when they want your candid opinion on other people. That's a flag. That's a
Yep.
huge flag.
Yep.
And I experienced that where I was asked for input on other individuals that were reporting to her, but we were friends.
Yeah.
So I thought I could speak candidly, and all of that backfired.
Wow.
Never ever overshare if it's not within your scope. You have to stay away from that. If you notice that work that not work but non-work conversations are happening after hours, and you whatever your core hours are,
Yeah.
if you're having conversations beyond that time, you have to start nipping it in the bud. You have to find ways to cut that. By the time I realized I was in too deep. And
Mm.
so there was no way for me to do it without there being backlash.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn that there are some things you cannot share because they're your supervisor. They're not your supervisor first and then something second. They're just your supervisor.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that and we have to always keep that in the top of mind. And so when there are conversations that are happening that are not appropriate and that are not related to your work description or your work responsibilities, change the subject.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
You
so
know,
yeah, so you don't have to be a jerk, right?
no,
You
absolutely
can do
not.
the work lunch. You can do the, even if they got the little after,
Absolutely.
people gonna connect for a little dinner because some people in
Yeah.
town. That's fine, but really the mindset piece
Hmm.
of this is a cordial colleague. This is not
Yes.
my friend. This is not where I'm
Correct.
getting kind of that whatever social emotional validation and
Hmm.
things I need to be getting. Now we mentioned we're in the boundary space here. So let's
Yep.
talk about this a little bit. Because there's this piece of you having this mindset piece of setting your boundaries. And then there's also this piece of like when other people lack boundaries. So
Hmm.
what is your thoughts on that? I'm thinking, how do you navigate when other people lack boundaries or when they're pushing back on the boundaries
Yeah.
you've set?
To be really honest with you, I had to work at this
Mm-hmm.
because when I left, by the time I left, I had done all of the things wrong. I had overextended myself. I had allowed, people to text me and message me after hours when I'm on vacation. I
Mm.
was getting frantic messages, and people knew I would respond.
Yeah.
And so it's a practice. And even if you're in the place where you've already done and you're like, well, what's the point now? It's too late. And it's not too late to start over.
Never too late to a fresh
Start some
start.
good
Okay.
habits, okay? Stop responding to emails after hours.
Yeah.
If you said your core hours are 9 to 5, don't respond at 5:01.
Yep.
That's after 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to decide that the way you want people to treat you, that is what you have to put out there.
Yeah.
So you cannot expect them to actually enforce your boundaries if you're not willing to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it took something as simple as setting up an autoresponder for myself, learning to just, once the autoresponder's on, I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's ironic because I do it now. The things I should have done then, I do them now.
Yep.
And so it may take you leaving your current job to be able to level set and reset those boundaries, because that's what it took for me.
Yeah.
I think I want to believe that it's never too late, right? And if I look back and say, oh, if I had gone back after medical leave, this is what I would have done differently.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just too much water sometimes the bridge is underwater. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the
So
bridge is gone, baby. The bridge is
it
burnt
done washed
down.
away.
Okay. But
So
yeah.
yeah.
This boundaries conversation though too, because we always talk about in Black Woman Leading Land, we always talk about heart work and head work, right?
Hmm.
And the head work is this tactical stuff that Nicole was talking about right now, autoresponders, having your set work day, all of that. But some of the heart work, which is the internal work, is the mindset piece.
Oh
But
yeah.
but as we talk about this boundaries thing, because this comes up, I don't care what topic we're talking about on this podcast and our program, boundaries come up. And I love that you said it's a practice because it requires some
Yes.
self-compassion. It didn't get to this situation overnight, so it may
No.
not be changed overnight. But I can guarantee you that if you are struggling with boundaries professionally, there is also probably something in your personal life that mirrors that, right?
Absolutely.
So this work that you're doing is holistic in that
Yeah.
learning to understand what are your limits, what are your boundaries, what are your preferences, what's aligned with the experience you want to have, and not
Yep.
just thinking that, but communicating that, right? And also, as you are
Absolutely.
hinting at, respecting the other people's boundaries as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to call out too, because I think it's here, but I want to state it explicitly. We have a lot of leaders that listen to this podcast. So part of your role is to model. That's the word I'm looking for. To
Yes.
model this stuff, right? And a simple thing that I know, I'm an early riser. I am, usually up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I might get a couple of things done before my family get up, whether it's deep work or writing or things of the sort. And something simple that I do, because I have a team, I have people that I work with. I might write an email, but I'm gonna schedule it to go out when the work
Absolutely.
day go, right? So I don't want to communicate because I know I set the tone. So I don't
Right.
want to communicate, oh, my manager is sending me emails at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to be responding to that for people who have a hard time with setting
Right.
boundaries or adhering to that. So there's a responsibility for you too. If you're a leader, how do you
Absolutely.
model this kind of behavior as well? Oh, girl, we could talk about this all day. Yeah,
Yes, we should.
okay, so you referenced this pet to threat, and I just want to raise out and honor the work of Dr. Keisha Thomas on this. You can Google pet to threat phenomenon and learn more about it. But Dr. Keisha Thomas is the one who kind of coined this term, and it really describes. And Nicole gave us a great example of it. How Black women who are initially seen as likable and
Mm-hmm.
supportive, they're excited. Your expertise is
Yep.
on the team. They giving you all kind of stuff because you knocking it
Yep.
out the box. But then at a certain point, that can be perceived as a threat when you demonstrate a particular set of competence,
Yep.
assertiveness. You start to challenge the status quo or ask questions because your
Yep.
expertise shows there's a better way we can do it. Then that starts to lead to negative treatment. So where once
Mm-hmm.
you were lauded as we're so happy to have you here. Oh my God, you
Yep.
knocked it out the park. Then it's like, oh, wait a minute, she look too good now. And you
Mm-hmm.
start getting that negative feedback. I see this across the spectrum, but I see a lot of our early career people are starting to experience this too, because there's an assumption that I'm gonna take you
Yep.
under my wing, or you this young
Mm-hmm.
girl, and the young girl is coming with that fire, and
Exactly.
here we go. So you talked about your own experience with this, but anything else you want to add to this about the managing the power dynamics, given this kind of pet to threat phenomenon?
Yeah, and I think it's such an important thing to keep in mind, and it could happen at any time, and it
Yeah.
turns on a dime. And I think something that's so important to keep in mind, because you think to yourself, "Oh, there's no way this will happen to me." I worked. Think about the fact that I worked at this organization for 10 years,
Wow.
and it took less than 1 year to dismantle everything that I had done based
Wow.
on the strength of one individual. And why is that? This is what's important to keep in mind. The reason why pet to threat is so effective and so pervasive is because they already believe, they're predisposed to believe the worst in you, because
Wow.
they believe the stereotype. They believe the angry Black woman trope. They believe all of the things they have heard, watched on TV, the wild over
Wow.
exaggerations of who we are. They're just waiting. They're waiting for the moment to say, aha, I knew
Wow.
it. And
Wow.
I will give you a perfect example of this. I had worked with certain individuals for over 8 years. Think about that. For over 8 years, they trusted me. They gave me awards time and again. They sung my praises.
Wow.
And one instance where I was burnt out, frayed at the edges, tired, running on very little sleep, I talked over one individual that had just come in less than 6 months. And they took that one instance, that one moment where I wasn't fully myself, and took that into my performance review.
Wow.
And for the first time in my entire career at that organization, I got my worst performance review,
Wow.
because they were ready to believe the worst. And that's why it's such a dangerous and effective tool, because it doesn't take much. It
Wow.
only takes one time, and you immediately go from the best, from being called rock star. These were some of the quotes that I heard from higher ups, to, yes, I was so unprofessional. You were very unprofessional.
Mm.
One instance is all it takes.
Wow. Wow. So we talked about this spectrum, right? There's this kind of positive, appropriate, aligned side to really navigating with your managers, but it can go to this dark side, what we're talking about now. Let's talk about the healing, Nicole, because you took this leave of absence to
Mm-hmm.
thinking you were sick, and getting results back to say, no, baby, you burnt out and stressed out. The body is okay. It's just responding to this stress. What did your recovery or your healing process look like? Because it may be somebody listening right now that's in the throes of this thing and
Yes.
wondering, oh my God, like how am I going to recover from this? What was and we know everybody's journey is different, but what was some of your journey to the healing and the recovery from some of these experiences?
Yeah. So during this time when this happened, for the first time in my entire life, I went to therapy.
Wow.
And let me tell you something, it is something that is really underrated. Therapy literally will save your life.
Mhm.
If I had been in therapy while I was going through, when things were even okay and great, because I would have grounded myself,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have come to that. I'd have left 2 years ago.
Wow.
I
Wow.
would have I would have been self-aware enough to see it coming, but because I was so sure that my work would speak for itself, would speak louder than the stereotype, I thought I could overcome everything just by the strength of my work. That's not
Wow.
true. That's not true, because it is packaged in this. And the
Yeah.
moment it is packaged in this, it is never enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is never enough. And therapy literally saved my life.
Wow.
And I realized that I had to do the work. And hearing the things that I heard in therapy, getting diagnosed with PTSD caused by my job. And you think about
Jesus.
how insane that is.
Wow. Wow.
To think about that you're in an environment that is equivalent to being at war,
Wow.
to having these experiences happen that are so traumatic that you actually have to get help getting yourself put back together,
Wow.
because you are literally broken. And it was just, it broke my heart in the sense, because I saw that little girl inside me, and I saw how, I remembered how my mother always would say that, you know, is not in your vocabulary, because I am somebody who's always fighting, who's always, you can't tell me no. I'm going to
Yeah.
show you that I can do this. And to see how I left her behind, like, and what it took,
Wow.
and I'm trying to step back, because it's still, I'm still working through that.
Absolutely.
I'm still trying to, I'm still healing. I
Yes.
haven't fully healed yet. And I
Yes.
think that's what we have to realize as Black women. It's going to take some time. They said that the average individual who experiences PTSD or goes through a toxic environment, it takes about 2 years
Wow.
to get to a place where you can have level footing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
And even the very individuals that did me the harm, I wouldn't wish what I experienced on them,
Yeah.
because it was how it was harrowing, it was painful, it was heartbreaking, it was all of those things. And to be kind of cast aside as callously as I was, it was something that I'm still trying to recover from. But therapy was the first step for me,
Yeah.
because it forced me to look at some things in the eye that I hadn't thought about, that I didn't want to face, and it shows you how even some of the things that you deal with during your younger years, or even over time, you start to almost attach yourself and replicate and allow those same things in your workplace.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what's so my therapist even told me that you have and I'm forgetting the term, but it's almost like attachment disorder, because I
Wow.
was trying to explain and justify the abuse.
Yeah.
I was like, well, actually, there were times when we would talk, and she would say, and I would say, well, actually, and she said, you're sitting here justifying what they did. Do
Wow.
you not see the unhealthy pattern? Do you not understand how unhealthy that is? You
Yeah.
are you are so wrapped up, you are so tied to this job, that you're not even at a point where you're willing to admit how harmful it was to you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's a vulnerable share, right? And we didn't earn that, right? But thank you for sharing it, because part of this podcast is about service. And somebody's listening needed to hear that, needed to be validated in making that call to see a therapist for the first time, because you're experiencing some of this. And I'm so happy that I know that this is a process, a practice, as you said earlier, but that you're doing this, you're giving this gift of healing for yourself. But what I'm also hearing, that I think is something to really raise up, is that there's some grace and some self-compassion we have to have for ourselves. In coaching, hundreds of Black women over my career, I've heard this common thread when people have experienced this type of environment, of this disappointment in self, right? How did
Yeah.
I let it, I look up and how did I get here? How did I allow this? And there is sometimes some anger at self, even some
Hmm.
shame at self in there. Because now that I'm on the outside, I can just see
Right.
how ridiculous this was. But I just want to raise that up, is that when you are in a system, right, you're knee deep in this thing. It's very
Yeah.
hard to identify sometimes what is happening when you are a character in the play,
Yeah.
right? You're a character in the
Yes.
a pawn in the game, using your language from your book. So
Yes.
I just want to affirm you, right, for this work that you're doing to not only support other people as you are doing your own work, still as you are doing your own
Yes.
healing. Like, it's powerful. It's powerful, and that's what Black woman leading in, right? Serving, even as I need to be served, right? I need to be, under the love, care, tutelage, support, but
Yes.
I'm still giving in the midst of that. So we definitely appreciate this gift, these gems you've shared today.
Absolutely.
I do want to ask you one or two of our core questions before we
Of
wrap up for the
course.
season, but just to, we could talk about this and unpack this thing all day, girl, but just to kind of maybe bring this to thinking about, let's say somebody's listening and this is really resonating either with their current experience or a common thing I see people have stepped out of that thing, but not
Yeah.
realizing they're still carrying a lot into a new experience, right? That may deserve a fresh them. What would
Yeah.
what words of wisdom, advice, encouragement would you give to that person who is on any side of the spectrum trying to
Yeah.
manage these uneven power dynamics and trying to thrive in their career at the same time?
There are two things that I have done since leaving that place, or that absolutely have been a game changer for me.
Yeah.
The first thing, and that I'm still doing now, the first thing that I've done is I've forgiven myself.
Mm,
And that is almost a daily act,
yes.
because every now and then that little voice tells you, well, if you had done X, Y, and Z at this time, then this wouldn't have happened and that wouldn't have happened. And sometimes you got
Yes.
to just be like, you know what, shut up. You know what, whatever.
Shut up.
But forgive yourself, and that it can be a daily act. Sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, if only. None of us have a time machine. We can't go back. That's why grace and mercies are new every morning.
Yes.
I'm just a little bit of
Girl,
church over there, okay?
come on and give us a word, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, Lord. Okay.
So that is exactly why, because we need it every day. So
Every day.
sometimes you have to forgive yourself,
Yes.
because the other thing that's important to realize, you didn't do this to yourself.
Yeah.
And so we have to realize that it doesn't matter how self aware and how amazing, how intelligent we are. We did not perpetrate this on ourselves.
Yeah.
We are the victim, not the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And we have to forgive ourselves. That is number one. Number two, that has been amazing for me, I call it, and I'm sure I probably didn't coin this term, but it's emotional detachment.
Mm.
And I take that into work. And you know what that means? That means you are my colleagues. I'm here to do my job. It doesn't mean that I half step. I still give 100%. But
Yeah.
when the clock strikes 5, where Nicole at? She not here because she gone.
Yeah.
I'm not here to hang out. I'm not here to make friends. I have found that such a lifesaver, because it allows you to actually look at work from a different lens.
Yeah.
And what I found when I look back and I replay the tape, I found I was so emotionally attached to my job. And that's why it took me so long to leave, because I
Wow.
couldn't quit it.
Yeah.
I couldn't quit the job because I was invested emotionally in it.
Yeah.
And so you think to yourself, oh, well, what will happen if I leave? Well, what about my team? And what about this? And what about what I started? And what about my
Yes.
legacy?
Yes.
And what if, who cares? You
Yep.
are literally killing yourself every time you go in here. Isn't your life more important than a job?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because tomorrow they'll be rid of you. And
Uh,
so
yeah, that's so good. It's so good.
emotionally detaching has been a lifesaver. I come to work differently. People know I am not for the games. I'm not here to hang out. I'm not here to kiki. I'm here to do my job, because you know what? I got friends outside of work.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
blessing. It's a blessing to have a life outside of work. And you will find that when things start to happen that don't quite sit right, you're going to see them that much faster,
Yeah.
because you are looking at this job is an asset. It is something that is helping you get to a point, whether it's advancement, whether it's a means to an end. Emotional detachment saved my life. It
Wow.
has brought me my peace back. I don't even think, like, look, it's 5, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you come to me between those hours, not a problem. I'm here to help, support. I will smile. I will thank and please, and you're welcome. But people know that, and that's how you train them. Okay, people know 501 Nicole is gone.
Yeah, yeah, because you teach
That's
people how
it.
to treat you, right? You teach them that. Yeah,
Exactly and absolutely. Those are the two things that I have taken into my new chapter in corporate life. And they are absolutely game changing. It'll change your life. It'll change your work life.
yeah,
For sure. Because it has
yeah.
mine.
That's so powerful, and just to amplify, like you said, we we attract high achievers to this podcast, to the programs, all of that. And the thing is, when we go through these situations, there is the lens to self often. And
Mm-hmm.
that's important. Okay. What role did I play? Even if it was not setting boundaries, that's important. But I think what you amplified is that we're operating in a system. And so when you talked about like the predetermined to see you in a certain way, right?
Yep.
We're operating in the systems of racism, in the systems of capitalism, in the systems of sexism that is ingrained into the
Yep.
institutions we are part of, including the ones that we work in. So yeah, we can look at self all day. But and that's important. That's work that
Yeah.
we have to do. But
Absolutely.
I think what you're amplifying is that it's a part of a system, baby. It ain't just what you did or didn't do
Right.
that's been perpetrated for years and generations upon generations upon generations
Yes.
down to that manager that's managing you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important to raise up. And the other thing you said that I think was really beautiful about this emotional detachment, which is ultimately a boundaries exercise. I have literally heard those questions you said in a coaching session. I've heard them when I was a therapist too. But what about my leg? And what about the people? And what about and the fact of the matter is, yes, excellence is a standard for you. Yes, there is a legacy and a contribution you bring, but the
Yep.
legacy is in you. So when you
Yes.
leave, baby, the legacy don't die. You take it and you spread the seed
Okay.
somewhere else. It
Yes.
ain't like because
Yes.
you left this space. It's back to what we were talking about with purpose. Because you left this space, now all this work is dead. No, you are the work. So where you go, baby, the work continues. And guess what? More
Yes.
people
Yes.
who probably
Mm-hmm.
deserve it get to
Uh-huh.
experience
Okay.
that. So that's so good. That is so good. Okay. Girl. Yes. Come on with a word from the Lord. Okay. Y'all didn't know
Yes.
y'all was gonna get a word from the Lord up in here today.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I got the transition. This is so good. I do want to ask you one or two of our core questions before we wrap on our season's theme of driving the narrative of your career. And
Yes.
really, the inspiration for this theme is we think Black women setting a vision for themselves, for their careers, is really revolutionary. For their leadership is revolutionary. And to be able to have this vision, this thing you want to experience, these goals you set, and to be able to go after that thing, to accomplish that, to advocate for yourself, to set boundaries in service of that is truly a gift and an accomplishment. So I love to ask you, just as a source of inspiration, can you share about a time when you kind of set a vision or a professional goal for yourself that you realized? What was that and what supported you to achieve that thing?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm living that out loud, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
Once I left that toxic job, and then I wrote this book and I said, you know what? I'm gonna get this book into as many hands as possible. And so seeing the book even in out in the atmosphere that people are
Yes.
talking about it, submitting reviews. It's actually 5-star rated on Amazon, by the way.
Ow.
Okay.
Ow. Love it.
So to see that come to fruition, to see like what I actually put into
Yes.
paper, to see it out there, to see people talking about it, it just has been such a blessing for me. And what I've learned to do now is I've been stepping outside of my comfort zone. So it's like, okay, now I've got the book out there. Now you got to stretch yourself a little bit. You
Yes.
got to go a little bit further. And so sharing the book with others, being on LinkedIn, I've had women in my messages sending me such powerful, I'm telling you, like, I, I cry a lot, but these are mostly tears of joy because to hear people say, you told my story,
Wow.
to see that, to hear that, that's what I wanted. I wanted not because of me, because to me, I really think about this. One of my favorite songs. I'm a church girl, so hey, and the line in the song is, "I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody."
Wow.
And when I think about the work that I do, it's not about me; it's about the message. And I know it needs to get out there, and to see it actually come to life
What a
and the
blessing.
way that it has is beyond anything that I could have imagined.
Wow.
To see that to have to Google myself now just to see what's out there is wild, but it's not in the way like, oh, hey, here I am. It's the message.
Yeah.
It's the message that is getting out there. And I think one thing I really want people to understand is that sometimes the hell you go through is not for you.
Mm.
And I know that seems like a horrible thing to say, but what I have learned is that a lot of what I dealt with was because I needed to help somebody else help them get through the hell that they were about to go
Yeah.
through or
Yeah.
that they're going through. Because this is 100%, especially as Black women, what we're doing collectively, individually, it is a group project, and we're only going to get through it if we do it together.
Hello.
Okay? Like, it's just 100%. I 100% believe that. And so to see that those seeds that I planted and to keep showing up and to see how they're starting to bloom and to grow and to hear from people saying, you are me, I am you, and I see myself in your words.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted because I knew I wasn't alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, congratulations, sis. I'm so proud of you. Look at you.
Oh,
I love it. I love it. So proud. Okay, last question. We've been talking about this heart work, this head work, and to really drive the narrative in an effective way that serves you and serves others, you got to be well. So, what are some ways you taking care of yourself these days?
yes. So I will 100, like, I have set specific boundaries outside of work because we'll have to keep in mind is that as a business owner, the day never stops for
Hello.
us. That
Yes.
okay, like it just, people, oh, I'm off the clock. What is that?
Yeah.
So, you have to set time aside for yourself. And one of the best ways I do that, even though I write technically for a living, I also write for therapy. Writing is
Mm,
my therapy. And so I'm an early riser as well. So I love to start my day when the sun is barely out and
yeah.
just write down some things and just really kind of get my feelings out and to really just share with myself what's happening or even look back at some of the things that I've written. And I'm like, oh, that's a blessing. I wrote that.
Yeah.
Okay, look at you go, girl. And just doing that, but also setting time aside with my family and just having a set day. So Sundays is everybody knows that Sunday is set aside
Yeah.
because it is just brunch and binge watching whatever we're watching, Netflix or whatever the case is, with my husband. And that is something that has been also a consistency that actually helps keep me grounded because no matter what, at 11 o'clock hits, I'm turning off the phones,
Yeah.
everything's getting shut down, and it is just focusing on what lights me up and focusing on someone that I love. And also just making sure that you're always taking time to do that for yourself and just finding ways to treat yourself because we work hard.
So
We
hard.
need to play hard, okay?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
whether it's a date night or whether it's just like, hey, let's just get out and just go for a drive, just finding time to always do that every single day because that's going to drive you more than just putting in the work, 12-hour
Yeah.
days, whatever it is we're putting in. You have to find the time to do things that bring you joy.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. This has been so good talking to you. Where can our listeners connect with you, get the book, or learn about anything else you have going on these days?
Yeah, so I try to make it really easy. So almost all of my handles are identical. You can find me primarily LinkedIn is my hub, is what I call it. So it's Nicole S. Palmer. So
Okay.
S like in Sam. Or you can go on my Instagram, exact same handle. And also you can go to my website. It will redirect, but you just put in NicoleSPalmer.com
Okay.
and you can find everything you need to know about the work and how to get the book, which it is on, just find it on, you do a search on Google. It's going to be on Amazon, Barnes and
Yeah.
Noble. It is all of the places. Okay. It is getting out there.
I love it. And we'll put all your links, of course, in the show notes
Thank
as
you.
well. All right, y'all. I hope that you have taken something away from this episode. If you have, send us a message, make a comment wherever you're listening or watching, and let us know your takeaways. You can connect with us, Black Woman Leading, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook at Black Woman Leading, and woman is singular. You can also visit our website at blackwomanleading.com to learn about our programs and events, and also listen to the podcast there. We're on YouTube now, of course, and you might be watching us here now. If you want to connect with me personally, I'm Laura E. Knights on all platforms. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can connect with me personally. And then, of course, if you'd like to learn about any of our corporate programs that we do, leadership development and coaching inside of organizations, you can check out our corporate site at knightsconsultinggroup.com. We will be happy to connect with you in any of these ways. And until next time, be well.